Hi everyone and welcome back to the Crafty Yellow Camper, and today I've got another card for you using the Delicate Whispers stamps and dies. These are the stamps, some really nice greetings in there, and these are the dies. There's some that cut out images that I've used today, and then there's some that are standalone dies, which are really nice for doing a bit of extra foliage. Right, okay. Right, so this is the card we're going to make. The other thing that I've used on this, or things I should say I've used the Deckled Circles dies, which as you can see you get a lot of. And I've used this Stone and Vine 3D embossing folder. And I have to say the actual picture on the packaging does it no favours whatsoever. It's so much nicer in real life. I bought it because I thought it'd be useful for men's cards and all sorts of things as well, which I think it will be, but when you actually see it embossed, I mean, look at the detail in that. And then if I show you the card I've already made, those ivy leaves, they just pick up so nicely, and I'll show you how I did that as well. Right, let's put that to one side and get started. So the first thing I've got, a lot of stuff on my desk, is a C6 card base, which is half of an A4 sheet of card cut in half. So that is 21 wide and 14.8, and we've scored it at 10.5. So that gives us our card front, and we're doing a portrait card, which this one is, although actually I think it would look nice in landscape anyway as well. But yeah, anyway, we're doing a portrait today. So the first thing I've done is I have cut a matte layer to go on my card, and this is, oh sorry, I should have said to you that this is Flirty Flamingo. And I've cut a matte layer in basic grey, and I have run it through to die cut my circle first. If you emboss first and then try to die cut a shape out of it, where you will flatten out all of your embossing. So I've die cut it, cut the circle, and then embossed it. So this is a circle that came out of it. And then I've gone ahead and used the same die, and I have die cut a white circle. Now, I made a bit of a boo-boo on this, and actually I've used the Deckled Circles because they were what was on my desk. But I think I would have been a whole lot better using the straight circles, because then it would have fitted in anyway. Whereas you can see this is a little bit of a test of where on earth does it go, because I don't really want to be seeing any of the pink underneath. So I'll fiddle with that in a minute. Anyway, onto this. So this is our embossed. So that's the debossed side, and this is the embossed side. And what I did, I went over it with some of the Sizex Luster Wax. This is the silver. It comes in a couple of different colours, and I've also got the rose gold as well, which is equally as nice. But today we're going to use the silver one. Okay, and you can see it's actually really solid wax. So I'm just using a dauber. It smells amazing. Probably shouldn't admit to sniffing my luster wax, should I? It's whatever thinners is in there. And all I'm going to do, you only need a tiny bit for this. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I'm just picking out the ivy leaves, and that's all. I mean, you could do, there's sort of a vine in here. You could do that, but I just wanted to do the ivy leaves, and because they are so raised, the luster wax just picks up on the edges. Now, it is best to do this with a dauber because you can control where it goes a little bit better. I mean, you could probably get away with the corner of a sponge if you haven't got any sponge daubers, but I would recommend the dauber, and you really don't need much. And it just picks out those ivy leaves really nicely from the dark cardstock. I've found this technique works really well on navy blue as well, or Night of Navy to give it its correct name, but it works better on dark. dark cardstock. And you can see I've literally only put a tiny bit of wax onto my sponge dauber, and I'm just going around making sure that I've got all the ivy leaves. I found that made the stone and the vines pop out a little bit more. Yep, we got those all, so I'm going to screw the lid back on that. Put that to one side and get rid of that. Right, now we're going to stick that onto our card blank. Now, I really would recommend using wet glue. I'm using Tombow. This has got some really deep recesses in it where the ivy leaves are. And I honestly don't think anything else would cut it. Just got a little bit of glue on there, so I'll just wipe that up. Please excuse the state of my mat. This gets really messy when I'm trying to design cards. Okay, and we're just going to fit that on to our card front. Get rid of any squelchy. Try not to go too near the edges with your wet glue, and then you won't get any squelchy bits. Okay, right, so that's our base there. And then we've got our white circle. Now, if you're anything like me and you use your die cut and plates on lots of different colours, you end up with marks from the plates, and I've just made that 10 times worse. So this little rubber is quite handy, but it's not going to take that off. I'm going to have to flip that. Okay, plan B. Okay, so as you can see, I'm having a real job trying to work out where that went. So I'm going to go for there, and we're going to raise it up anyway. I'm going to stamp. Actually, I stamped my greeting in Smoky Slate on this one. It doesn't show up very well, so I'm going to switch to Mossy Meadow, which is the green that I've been using. Now, the one thing I really like about photopolymer stamps is that you can manipulate them. So because we're stamping this onto a circle, I thought it would be nicer to have it in a curve rather than a straight line. And the best way to do that is to put it down onto your piece of card, work out where you want it, twist it so it fits the shape, and then pick it up with your block. Now, I'm not saying this is perfect, but there we go. So we've gone from a straight stamp to a curved stamp, so that's just another little tip there. We're going to leave the rest of that white. My head wants me to be doing other things with it, but sometimes it's good to have a little bit of blank space on a card. Sorry, I just tried to blow on that, didn't I? Now I've got the bits I need for my card everywhere. Right, okay, so the next thing I've done, so that's going to fit back in on our card, but we're going to raise it up, so it won't matter if you see a little bit of that pink underneath, but really is awkward to fit that back in. As I said, next time I make this card, if I make it again, I'll do it with a plain circle, which will be so much easier. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I have stamped and die cut these two images. These sort of, it's not a swag really, is it? A spray of flowers and leaves, because they just scream out, I need to go around a circle to me. So I'm going to be colouring those with my watercolour pencils. I think watercolour pencils are something we don't tend to use as much. If you want a little bit more of a softer colour, then the watercolour pencils are really good for that. The blends, obviously, you can use the lighter ones. They work equally well, but they do give you much more of a bright colour. And for this, I want a sort of a soft colour, so I'm just going over with my watercolour pencils. Okay, that's all the leaves on that one. Now we'll get all the leaves on this one. I do find that when you sharpen them, the points are a little bit too sharp and they tend to give you scratchy lines. So when I sharpen mine, I tend to then sort of blunt them off a bit on a piece of scrap paper, and it makes it easier to colour with them without getting the, like that, the sharp lines. Okay, so that's our leaves in, one more up there. So our leaves in Mossy Meadow. And then I have got Rich Razzleberry. The card base is Melon Mambo, which I've also got, or Flirty Flamingo, sorry, which I've also got here. But I worked out that the Rich Razzleberry was a better colour pencil. But it is a retired, oh no, it isn't a retired colour. Oh no, I think it might be actually. Yeah, it is a retired colour. But use whatever you've got. Keep hoping that they'll bring out some new watercolour pencils in some of our newer colours. But I think because Stampin' Up! Colours blend so nicely together, these old and retired ones do work just as well with the existing colours. I'm not going to get rid of my pencils just because they're retired colours, because that would be horribly wasteful. As I said, I did start off with Flirty Flamingo, and then the last thing I'm going to come in with is Cajun Craze, which is definitely a retired one, but any sort of brown will do, just to give a bit of colour to these ferny, sort of bulrushy bits. Oh, just seen a leaf I haven't coloured. That's the thing, when you start colouring the next bit, you often find a bit that you've missed. These are sort of grasses, I suppose, sort of like a pampas grass, I suppose. Okay, right, now you've seen me blend before with the Wink of Stella, but you can also blend with our blending pens, which is what these are. You get 3 in a pack, and they're basically alcohol pens. You get a thick end and a more detailed end, and they're basically full of rubbing alcohol, but they just help you to blend in your colour. Which I always find really helpful. And I've used watercolours because you don't always want to use an aqua painter because that makes our basic white cardstock too wet. But a blender pen does the job nicely. Okay, I'm just fishing a bit out of the bin just to scribble that off to get off any other colour. So then I'm going to do the leaves. And you can see you can spread the colour out nicely. Fill in any gaps that you've missed with your pencil. And it will pick up a little bit of the colour, so you can, as I said, fill in any gaps. It's quite nice and quick because we've already laid down the colour on the leaves. So all we're doing now is spreading it out. So you don't really have to worry too much about colouring in the lines with the actual pencil. Obviously you don't want to make a huge mess. You can see that's just picked up a little bit of that green, and then I'm going to go in on this Cajun Craze. It makes it a little bit easier to sort of get that nice sort of watercolour washed look. And as I said, get it in the place where you want it. Okay, and I did notice there was a bit I'd missed. Now where's it gone? Can't see it now. Ah, there. Missed a leaf there. Just scribble off the colour because it was a different colour I was using. So if you make sure you always scribble off the colour before you put it away, then they'll always be ready to go. Right, I think that'll do. And I did see a video the other day, I think it was on Facebook or YouTube, where you can actually take the ends out of these and refill them because it is rubbing alcohol that's in them. So there's our pencils out of the way. Okay, right, so now what we're going to do is add these bits in. I've also gone ahead and stamped one of the sort of pampas grassy bits in Mossy Meadow, and I've got some little flowers and some sort of spriggy bits. Haven't decided how many spriggy bits I want yet, so I've got a few and some little flowers, so we can get that out of the way. Okay, right, the first thing we're going to do is put some dimensionals on the back of our circle. So I'm using the larger dimensionals for this. 1, 2, 3. Not very good at spreading them around, but the flowers are going to have dimensionals on. Sorry, let me move that round here so it's not, I'm not reaching across the card so much. So I've got my little pot of backs here. I think I said in a previous video, somebody asked me what I was saving them for, but I don't actually save them. They are in that jar to contain them. And then when the jar's full, I throw them away. Right, we are going to put some dimensionals on the backs of our flowers. And again, we can go for the full size ones of these. It's quite dimensional heavy, this card. Okay, and then on the back of the sort of pampas grass, I'm going to put some small. Probably could get away with a large one on that bigger bit. Sorry, you can't see what I'm doing, can you? And if you haven't got small ones, you can cut your big ones down. I just find it easier to use the small ones since I do have them. Okay, right, so what we're going to do now is put our sort of swag of flowers round, but we don't want to cover up the writing. And you can either snip off this piece of stalk there, but I'm actually going to tuck it in. So I'm going to go with the bigger one first. Let's get the backs off those. This is the one with the stalk. As I said, you could just snip it off if you don't want it. And we don't want to cover up our words, but we equally don't want to come off the side of the card. So that's that one on there. And then we're going to go in over the top with this one. As I said, there's lots of different bits of foliage in the dies in this set. And we're going to put that one there. Again, just make sure you don't go over the side of the card because that will make it difficult getting it in your envelope. Right, then we're going to come in with our pampas grassy one, and you can again cut down the stalk on this because it is quite long, but I did manage to get it in. Oh, my other card I did. Behind this one's not playing ball. Right, I think what we're going to have to do is snip that off the end there because that one doesn't want to play ball. So we'll chop that off, and then that's it. Again, we don't want it over the edges of the card. And then I've got some of these little, not really sure what they are, sort of bracken leaves almost. And I'm just going to pop a little bit of tiny dot of glue. Why is it whenever you're filming you say a tiny dot of glue and end up with a huge big bit? And we're just going to feed the tail on that under there. And again, you could cut it off if you wanted to. And I've got another little one. I'm just going to feed in there. Again, tiny little dots of glue, which I'm not very good at. Sort of squeeze it and then let it go back in. And I'm just going to slide that. Do you know what? When I was making the first card without anybody watching, there we go. I'm just going to slide that one in there as well, just on top of our pampas grass. And then to finish it off, I have got some little flowers which I've die cut using the double die. Oh goodness me, I'm losing them everywhere now. Oh, where is that on my trousers? I always like it when the nice people at Stampin' Up give us more than one die cut image on a die when they're this size. Makes them easier to handle. And again, I've got one of my trusty little Tiptree jam jars with those in. Right, now these have got a little hole in the middle, as you can probably see, but I am going to put a small dimensional in the middle, and that's going to help hold on our embellishments on the other side when I stick it on. All right, so I'm going to put that in there. Always use odd numbers, 1, 3 or 5. It just makes a little collection of things look better spaced than if you do 4 or 2. So there's our 3. And then I've just looking for my take a pick tool. And I have got, oh goodness me, some pearls. You can tell this is a really old sheet. There's not a lot left on it. And although they have got adhesive on the back on these pearls, the fact that we've got that Stampin' Dimensional behind the flowers, that's going to just give it an extra little bit of stick, because it's sticking on to the bit of the dimensional that's showing through the flower, and these tiny little pearls are a perfect size for that. Okay, so there we've got our card. Oh goodness me, everything's getting caught up on my desk. Right, so there we go, there's our 2 cards. Hope you like them, hope you'll give it a try. The gorgeous papers that go with this stamp set, the Delicate Wishes papers, are absolutely lovely, and they do have one of the new in colours, the Hydrangea Hue. Unfortunately I haven't ordered that yet, but I just wanted to let you see that you can use any colours that you've already got in your stash. Okay, so there's our 2 cards. Hope you like them, hope you'll give it a go, and I'll see you all again soon. Thanks for watching, and happy stamping.